In Ecuador, with 98.50% of the ballots counted, presidential candidate of the Union for Hope coalition, Andres Arauz, won the first round vote on Sunday. Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse reiterated that he will step down while the opposition has appointed the most senior judge of the Supreme Court as transitional president. Israeli forces demolished the water well and 2 caravans in occupied Palestinian territories this Monday. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is From the South. Ecuador's presidential candidate for the Union for Hope coalition, Andres Arauz, won Sunday's elections with more than 32% of the vote. With 98.5% of the ballots counted, the Union for Hope presidential running mate Arauz Rabascal took a strong lead in this first round vote with 32.60%. Almost tied in second place are Yacu Perez of the Pachacutic indigenous movement and with 19.88%, and also Guillermo Lasso of the Creating Opportunities Party with 19.59%. The results mean a second round vote will be held to determine the next president scheduled for April 11th. The general elections were held under strict biosecurity measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and saw turnout of over 81%. In an exclusive interview with teleSUR, Ecuadorian presidential candidate Andres Arauz highlighted the victory achieved this Sunday and pointed out that he will now focus his efforts on the runoff election in April.
It has been a resounding victory. We have secured victory in the majority of the country's provinces. In all regions, we have had an overwhelming support of the Ecuadorian people. We always said we were first in the hearts of Ecuadorians. Now that it has been confirmed, and evidently we must now have a perspective towards the second round, which is to try to bring together the vast majority of the Ecuadorian people who have decided to choose other options in this opportunity. We greet all the Ecuadorians who voted for these different options and invite them to join the Union for Hope, this great commitment to rebuild our country and to give them jobs, a future and dignity.
And during the general elections held on Sunday, presidential candidate Yacu Perez arrived at the National Electoral Council after the announcement of the results to denounce the lack of transparency of the electoral process after various surveys placed him in third place.
First interviewers once again feel I don't think it's so ingenious to me. It seemed that was clearly calculated. It was premeditated. In the interviews, they always put us too low, and now we are not a third success for put it. Keeps coinciding with the result entering our platform. Here we are with a technical tie with Arauz. However, they put us so low now with the result that the CNE just given the rapid counting in the second position. It's the same position in second position because they put us in a third place that their once again it is evident the senators respond to the banker and the social criminals respond to the law, which is in virtue. They do want Pachacutu to have Yacu Perez go to the second return on the second round be defeated.
Yacu Perez also called on political and social movements to work together after the official results that at this very moment place him in the presidential runoff.
Alliance must be expanded with all sectors, that may be good social sectors, more and good political sectors that align themselves to the frontal fight against corruption, to a frontal fight against violence, to a frontal fight against the division of the country, to all who are committed to national reconciliation, to reconciliation with more nature, to those who agree to protect the planet, and if we protect the planet, our children, and the children of our children, the doors will always be wide open.
On the other hand, the presidential candidate for the Creating Opportunities movement, Guillermo Lasso, announced that his party will not recognize the possibility of a runoff election until all the votes have been counted.
We respect the law, and in this case, the law implies recognizing the results when 100% of the tallies have been counted.
Moving on, the presiding judge of the Supreme Electoral Court of El Salvador, Dora Martinez, suggested a return to manual vote counting for the municipal and legislative elections scheduled for February 28th. The proposal was offered by Dora Martinez after detecting failures in the automated system of transmission of results during the mock election held nationwide on Sunday. Among the defects are codes that do not coincide with the key registered by the computer system and absence of the software for the filling in ballots on some voting machines. Martinez considered that there is not enough time to solve these problems before the elections and therefore recommended the manual count, while other magistrates of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal indicated that this proposal is an individual position and does not represent the institution as a whole. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights began a hearing to study the lawsuit filed against the Colombian state for the genocide of members of the Patriotic Union Party. The virtual hearing will be held over 5 days to hear from members of the Patriotic Union. The lawsuit filed in 1993 accuses the Colombian state of being involved in the murder and the violation of the human rights of at least 6,000 party members, as well as violating freedom of thought and expression. The violent acts against members of the party began in 1984 and continued for 20 years. In the midst of a political crisis in Haiti, President Jovenel Moïse has stressed he will not step down, urging the opposition to engage in a process of talks and to support his proposal for constitutional reform. Addressing the nation, Moïse claimed he has another year in office and stressed that there will not be any transition process on Sunday when his term constitutionally ended. The head of the state claimed an attempted coup against him and had been foiled with the arrest of at least 20 people, among them a judge and a police inspector. Despite this, President Moïse asked his opponents to unite to undertake effective reforms to the Haitian constitution and called for an end to the widespread protests, calling on him to step down. And still in Haiti, this Monday, judges from the 18 jurisdictions will go on a strike in protest against the arrest of Judge Ivikele Dabreso. In a statement issued by the National Association of Judges, they demand the immediate release of Judge Dabreso. They also denounced the harassment and the intimidation that members of the judiciary are suffering. Judge Dabreso was arrested on Sunday along with 20 other people. According to Prime Minister Joseph Jout, they were accused of taking part in an attempted coup. Sunday's events occurred on a significant date in which, for various social organizations, federations, politicians, and activists, the mandate of Jovenel Moïse has ended. And opposition parties appointed a top judge as interim leader as the latest attempt to oust President Jovenel Moïse, whose term they say has expired. In a video statement this Monday, Judge Joseph Mécène Jean-Louis said he accepted the role of the opposition and civil society to serve the country as interim president for the transition. The political crisis intensified on Sunday when authorities said they had foiled an attempt to murder Moïse and overthrow the government. But the opposition said Moïse could not claim to have suffered a coup attempt because his presidential term had expired. Former Senator Yuri Latour said overnight on Sunday that the transition period was expected to last around 24 months. Moving on, Mexican President Andres López Obrador returned to his daily morning press conference this Monday following a 2-week absence after contracting COVID-19.
In Mexico, there is no authoritarianism. It is forbidden to forbid. Everything is voluntary. Liberty is the most important thing. No, according to what doctors say, I'm no longer contagious. An authority has to set the example. It is not possible that because I am president or hold the most important position in the republic, in a circumstance such as this one, to behave in an influential way, setting a bad example. That because I am the president, I have to be vaccinated first.
And the Mexican president revealed he received experimental treatment, which he described as an antiviral medication of an anti-inflammatory drug. Mexico has not received new shipments of vaccines in weeks and is down to its last 5,000 doses. However, the president repeated his faith that the country will get enough vaccines from Pfizer, Russia, China, and India to vaccinate all Mexicans aged over 60 by the end of March. In Brazil, teachers in the city of Sao Paulo have called a strike action against a return to classrooms in the midst of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Teaching Union President Maria Isabel Noronha explained that the strike is based on health concerns in defense of life and against a return to on-site classes, as the necessary conditions to prevent the spread of COVID-19 are not in place. The union official pointed out that the move is about protecting the lives of teachers, students, employers, and their families. Argentina's government announced the detection of 2 variants of the novel coronavirus in the country. The information was confirmed by Health Minister Inés González García, who indicated that the Amazonas P1 variant was detected in 2 samples and the Rio de Janeiro P2 mutation in 2 travelers. González García explained that all the cases originated from Brazil. The minister pointed out that the discovery of these cases highlights the importance of implementing active genetic epidemiological surveillance to monitor the introduction of new variants in the country, and at the same time called on the population to continue to comply with the prevention measures against COVID-19. Peru began its 2nd week of lockdown to prevent the spread of the coronavirus this Sunday. 10 million inhabitants of the capital Lima are under a mandatory quarantine to curb the 2nd wave of the COVID-19 epidemic, which has infected over 120,000 people in the country. The lockdown, which will be in place until February 14th, covers Lima and the port city of Callao, as well as 8 other regions of the Peruvian coast. In the midst of the situation, a new shipment of 300,000 vaccine doses has arrived, with which mass vaccinations is scheduled to begin from Wednesday. The Italian city of Milan in Lombardy, which has been at the center of the coronavirus outbreak in the country, became a yellow zone over the weekend, with most of the stringent restrictions lifted. After weeks of strict rules, the spread of the coronavirus in the city has slowed since mid-January. The economic crisis has increased pressure on the government to allow the reopening of public spaces and services such as restaurants, cafeterias, shops, and museums. According to experts, with the current pace of vaccinations, Italy will not reach herd immunity before autumn. To date, the country has registered more than 1.1 million infections and over 91,000 deaths. And the World Health Organization and its COVAX partners warned against dismissing AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine after several setbacks, insisting it remains an important life-saving tool.
The primary job of vaccines right now is to reduce hospitalizations and death. And right now, the data on, I think, all of the vaccines and all of the situations that they're working to do that. We may need 2nd and 3rd generation vaccines to do more. We may need better vaccines to do more than just stop deaths and stop hospitalizations. But right now, we have the tools to stop both by adequate control of the disease at community level.
This Monday, Israeli occupation forces demolished the water well and 2 caravans in the occupied Palestinian territories. According to Marzouk Abu Naim, the head of Al-Mughayir village council based to the east of Ramallah, a large army force raided the northern section of the village and proceeded to demolish the well, which is owned by a local farmer. Israel continues to steal water from the occupied West Bank by curbing Palestinian access to it, while increasing the control of illegal Jewish settlements have over water resources in the area. Meanwhile, Israel soldiers demolished 2 caravans in Kirbet Yarsa village that were used as a residence for 2 brothers. An official with Tuba's governorate said an international humanitarian agency provided the caravans to be set up as shelters for them after their homes were demolished by the Israeli military in September.
A systemic demolition process by the occupation forces for the fourth time in a row during a week. They raid this community and completely demolish it. We rebuild and then they return again to demolish. Today they left nothing for the citizens. They removed everything that could be used, whether for livestock or citizens. It is clear we are talking about the annexation process, which was announced about a year ago.
Russia described the expulsion of its diplomats in Poland, Germany, and Sweden as unjustified and unfriendly. The statements were made by Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova. The official assured that the decision of Poland, Germany, and Sweden is in accordance with the Western policy of interference in Russia's internal affairs. Zakharova added that unlike Warsaw, Berlin, and Stockholm, the Kremlin decided to expel diplomatic staff of these three countries and declare them as persona non grata after their participation in unauthorized demonstrations. She also emphasized that the statements of the head of European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, after his visit to Russia show that the diplomacy of the West lacks common sense. The second impeachment trial of former U.S. President Donald Trump will begin on Tuesday in a divided Senate. Both Democrats and Republicans want to settle the matters as quickly as possible. More than a month after hundreds of radical Trump supporters stormed Congress, the Senate will try the former president on a single charge of incitement of insurrection as presented by the House of Representatives. The process is expected to last a week to 10 days, depending on previous negotiations. Democrats control the Senate and hold the reins of the process, which will be chaired by veteran Senator Patrick Leahy, but they would need to convince 17 Republicans to support the charge in order to impeach Trump.
He was president when he was impeached. And just because you don't have the job anymore doesn't mean the indictment doesn't hold.
I want Congress to get through this quickly because I want them to get to the stuff that actually matters. But at the same time, it's tough because you can't let someone incite an insurrection in Washington, D.C. I mean, we could hear the flashbangs from, a couple blocks that way, right at the Capitol. And, you can't just let them get by with nothing, and at least kind of putting that black mark on his record for life, I think would be important for that.
The U.S. Department of State announced that requests to meet Myanmar's ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi were denied. President Joe Biden has raised the threat of new sanctions against the country following the military takeover last week.
I will say that shortly after the events of February 1st, we made an effort to reach out to Aung San Suu Kyi. We did that both informally and we did that formally as well. Those requests, of course, were denied.
This Monday, Pakistan received a batch of COVID-19 vaccines donated by the Chinese military during a handover ceremony held at the Noor Khan Air Base near Islamabad. Pakistani Lieutenant General Nigar Johar, Surgeon General of the Pakistan Army, and Major General Cheng Wenrong, Defense Attaché of the Chinese Embassy in Pakistan, attended the handover ceremony. Shen said the move was another important step taken by China to fulfill its commitment to making Chinese COVID-19 vaccines, once developed and put into use, a global public good, and will promote the military-to-military anti-epidemic cooperation between the two countries. The vaccines will be used in the country's national vaccination drive to get frontline health workers vaccinated. South Africa has suspended plans to vaccinate its frontline health workers with the AstraZeneca vaccine against COVID-19. That decision comes after a small clinical trial conducted by the University of Witwatersrand has suggested that the vaccine is not effective in preventing mild to moderate illnesses caused by the dominant variant of the virus in the country. The suspension raises uncertainty over the country's vaccination plans just 1 week after receiving the first 1 million doses of the vaccine. To date, the nation registers more than 1.4 million infections and over 46,000 deaths.
The one thing we need to do in the short term is to distribute this AstraZeneca vaccine to what we would call healthier adults, as described in the study, because they targeted people who were less than 65 and did not have comorbidities or risk factors per se. But also what could be really helpful is the fact that Oxford and AstraZeneca are already developing a booster. And so if we can get that booster to us, then it will really help us to get the most out of the AstraZeneca vaccine, especially if that booster is actually designed to be able to overcome the challenges we're having with the new variant in South Africa.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For teleSUR English, I am Andres Arauz. See you next time.